Good day, brothers and sisters. I wish you all well, and with the gratitude you push those buttons, subscribe and like, and all the best things are coming to you today. All your wishes coming true, just because you click those buttons. Today's a great show, Glenn. What's up, Glenn? How you been?
Very good. Always enjoyable having another guest on the show. You know, a different point of view, a little bit adding to the content. Fantastic.
Introduce yourself, Ben. How are you?
Well, I'm good.
Yeah,
nice to see you guys.
So Ben comes from the mainland of China, and in your experience here, you've been living here in North America for a while. How's China feel compared to North America, Canada, and U.S.?
Well,
or actually the other way around. How's North America feel compared to China?
Well, in the political sense, so I do feel the the liberty of expressing your whatever you like in North America, like in terms of U.S. But I do feel like sometimes I need to hold it back because there's some kind of monitoring from my home country that's still going on. So
that's why we disguised his voice, and he's wearing a little cat mask. You borrowed that. It's just to potentially protect his family, because he might be coming out with some things that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, won't really like, and they have foreign people in other countries going to be watching what's going on.
But I hate to break it to you both. CCP has been so deeply, and as you can tell, all the news that came out in the last few weeks, specifically regarding CCP's influence on Canadian Parliament and how they've been hustling their families in China, to influence the votes and influence the political structure here in Canada specifically. And we know of Chinese police stations that have been implemented throughout North America. Ben, you're not really safe here either. But it's affecting not only Chinese citizens, but it's affecting us all. And since the government has been compromised, okay, don't take my word for it. Let's watch this video really quick.
So today, I want to be very clear, and I want to be very clear. We can prove that every federal government, from Mr. Mulroney to Mr. Trudeau, have been compromised by agents of the Communist China.
This is CC's, former senior CC's official.
Every government were informed at one point or another. Every government choose to ignore CC's warning, either by negligence, self-interest, or partisanship. Every government were infiltrated by agents of influence acting on behalf of the Chinese government, and we knew who they were. Every government took decisions that are questionable about China and can only be explained by interference exercised from within or motivated by self-interest. Not only the sitting government have been compromised, but all federal political parties have been compromised at one point or another. The inaction of the federal government, all federal governments, were led to attacks on many municipal and provincial governments. Ultimately, every government has been part of the problem, not the solution. And remember, not only China is practicing interference.
Glenn, well, this bloke, isn't he part of the problem too? Why is he coming out many years afterwards, after possibly the retirement?
Well, Champ, maybe a lot of truths are starting to make their way out. If he would have came out with that a couple of years ago, maybe him or his family would be in danger. So the B man here, Big B, he feels a lot safer here in the studio with us. Not going to have any Chinese interference is something he's going to say. Plus, we have Rambo the mascot, the Rottweiler, and he seems to take a liking to you already. So you'll be a lot safer with Rambo around.
So in light of everything that happened, and I'm going to tread the waters lightly so we don't get canceled on YouTube. In light of everything that happened in the last 3 years, do you think those officials have been compromised? You know, in this whole Epstein story that came out too, like we know that all those politicians and otherwise businessmen of influence, they've been compromised probably by some underage child sex trafficking things going on. Is it similar that same thing happening? China, you know, using the same kind of methods to bribe and compromise the Western world, and not just China, like you said, and things like Bill C-11 that was passed in Canada. Specifically, well, this is just to promote Canadian content, but if you read the whole thing, it's really isn't. It's also to control the speech. And maybe you're right. Like the things that we are hearing now coming out from other sources outside of CBC, you know, and CTV and Global News and everything else, you know, government-approved information. Thanks to things like Bill C-11, they're trying to get a control. And in the last episode, we read, you know, how they addressed Twitter with the hate speech things. And like, if you don't comply, we're trying to enforce local laws on you. And, you know, a lot of that attributed to the woke culture, Glenn, which is sort of like the neoliberal thing, which is far left, comes really close to really some sort of authoritarian control thing as well. You got to think as I tell you to think, or you the fascist, you the racist, you're not a good person. How do you feel about that?
Personally, I think it's the globalists using another bad ways of controlling the people. And this is a controlled narrative also. And now they want people to blame like foreign interference, like China. And all the politicians, we know that they're puppets of the globalists. They're paid to do what the globalists want. And we're led a false belief that we have a real democracy here in North America.
All right. Well, let's hear what Polyev has to say about that.
And I wonder if you would like to kind of backtrack or apologize on characterizing the CRTC as a small group of privileged insiders closest to the Prime Minister. And I would also ask him if he would like to define the word woke. I asked one of his colleagues as well for that definition, and I'd like to see what he has to say. Thank you.
Actually, I will backtrack. It is a big group of insiders, Madam Speaker. It is a big, sprawling bureaucracy with far too many people working for it. There will be less people working for the CRTC when I'm Prime Minister because they'll have less power and they'll have a hell of a lot less to do when I restore freedom of speech and freedom of expression online and on the internet. And as for the definition of woke, woke has one purpose, only one purpose. Plenty of pretexts, but only one purpose: control. It is designed to divide people by race, by gender, by ethnicity, by religion, by vaccine status, and any other way that they can divide people into groups. Because why? Then you can justify having a government to control all those groups. No more woke. We need freedom.
You see? Just what I said. Woke is a globalist agenda to divide and conquer the people.
Ben, you have something to say about woke?
Yep. So I live in a very liberal part of the U.S. So
sorry to hear that, Ben.
And you know, I'm from an Ivy League institute, so you know the culture over there is pretty woke, and you know there's a lot of things you're not supposed to say. So
okay, that's an interesting point. Are you afraid to say less in your liberal Ivy League institution setting versus in China?
So that's an interesting question. I would say in different aspects. So in China, you're not supposed to talk bad about the government. So the only thing is the government. If you talk bad, they invite you to have a cup of tea, and this is the expression that you know, chances are you'll never come back. So that's the case for China. You would just disappear miserably, and nobody will find out. So that happens. Yeah, I've heard stories like in the neighboring universities, somebody says something on Weibo is like the Twitter of China, and they just disappeared for a year. And the second year, the person come back, but he's not saying a word. So
He went to re-education camp, right? That's not what it is.
I think that's what happened, but he is not allowed to say a word about what happened in that year. So,
Glenn, it's not so bad over here yet.
No, I don't think we'd do too well over there. I mean, we'd be in jail all the time.
You'll probably be dead by now. Hopefully not.
Yeah, I'd go down fighting. I'll tell you that, brother.
Yeah, Elon Musk, he's stepping down from Twitter. I mean, obviously, he cannot do absolutely everything. He's moving on to the next thing. He's linking the brains with the brain chips and then connecting everybody to the Skynet. He's the Antichrist, in my opinion. No, I don't know. I don't know what his story is. But he's replacing himself with this lady. Well, is it a lady? I don't know. Maybe I don't know her pronouns. But
What's with the jewelry around her neck, big guy?
I don't know. It looks like a sun.
Yeah.
Is it some sort of sun?
Yeah. Okay.
Her name is Linda Yaccarino.
Yaccarino.
And she was the executive chair in WEF. Glenn, what's up? Is this like bait and switch?
Yeah, she was working in the NBC studios for a long time. I mean, years and years and years, and now she just switched over. But we also find out she's part of the World Economic Forum. So we'll see. Hopefully, that's a globalist agenda, the World Economic Forum, like the Council on Foreign Relations, like United Nations. And hopefully, maybe she might be, like we say often, pulling a Benito Mussolini and switching over to a side that she believes that is starting to win in this globalist fight at the top for control.
So many talks. But she also recently got Elon Musk to commit to self-censorship, or tried Elon Musk to commit to self-censorship, and urged him to allow advertisers to feel that they can influence Twitter. So yeah, maybe it's the holdover from the old school, but things need to change. I'm really hoping like the Twitter thing is the first step, and then maybe YouTube will follow. But there's a lot of things that going on with this. There's this war on people's minds, but there's also war on people's lives, Glenn. Do you think, like we here in the West, we're really lucky. We're talking about, Twitter wars. People in the East, specifically in Ukraine, they're actually dodging real bullets and bombs and rockets. And a lot of them, it seems like there is no stop to it, and things like are getting worse. They're getting introduced, the more advanced weapons are getting introduced to conflict. And it seems like England, UK made a pretty daring step towards escalating the conflict to World War III. What do you think, Glenn? Are we actually going to, if all fails, if the mind wars will fail, and seem like they are failing already, do you think the next thing for the globalists is actually to engage into physical conflict, World War III conflict?
Well, the next world war would be like, if you start sending nuclear, we're all going to lose. There are no winners. So this is, again, controlling the narrative through the pretext of fear-mongering. Obviously, we're getting close to something bigger happening in the world financially, economically, because as this is going on, this threat about war, disease, it's manifesting everywhere, and it's picking up steam. So we must be getting closer to the end of this world economic system as it stands right now.
What's the new prime minister?
Rishi Sunak.
Rishi Sunak. You want to hear what he said?
The United Kingdom will be the first country to provide Ukraine with longer-range weapons. So now is the moment to double down on our military support.
Paid provocateur.
Double down on the military support to do what exactly? What are they trying to achieve?
Yeah, him just one of them, like Canada, like Australia, like United States of America, sending money, weapons, everything over there to create more conflict. And this is promoted in the Western media of the Anglo-American Empire. Yet what's hated is U.S. alleges that South Africa gave weapons and munitions to Russia.
Wow. That's a question to our guests. Where you would know more about internal information, what's going on in terms of propaganda in China. Where's China stands on this conflict? Like, what do the people say? Like, not just the government, but what do the people on the ground say about the whole Ukrainian-Russian conflict?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So people are pretty, I would say it's pretty diverse. So in terms of how the government narrative says, it says it stays neutral. But actually, I think it's more leaned towards Russia, my personal opinion. But in terms of people, I'm actively, looking on different forums. So some people are pro-Ukraine and some people are pro-Russia, about the 50-50.
Really?
So,
I would never think that. Which people are pro-Ukraine? Which people are pro-Ukraine?
I think, okay, so a lot of people, who are more empathetic against, towards people who are suffering in Ukraine, they're more pro-Ukraine. And a lot of people who thinks that, Ukraine is doing too much in terms of joining NATO, and those people are more pro-Russia. So it's actually pretty much a lot of debates in the internet world.
Not to put you on the spot, where do you stand?
You're on the spot.
I'm on the yeah, I guess I'm on the spot. I think I don't like wars. Like, in terms of, I don't agree with what Putin does, like, killing a lot of people. I think that is cruel. Like, whatever country that wins, it doesn't really matter. I just want, the peace between the people of these two countries. And I feel like, the political leaders, they are always like taking advantage of people.
But notice you mentioned Putin first. So is it your neoliberal setting there, washed your brain? Wasn't it? How come you could have said the same thing? Well, I don't like what Zelensky's doing. He's killing a lot of people. And it could be both civilians and military.
Maybe unintentionally just rooting for the little guy. A lot of people do that, eh? In pro sports and everything. I always vote for the underdog. That's a point of view that derive from what you gauge of yourself, by the way.
Timing-wise, actually, working out too. Look, nothing is for nothing. Like, right, they were talking about this Ukraine counteroffensive, and all of a sudden they start using those Abrams tanks. The first batch finally came in after like 6 months of like, oh, they're coming, we're sending them. Well, it makes me question the West made fun of the Russian technology in this war, and it's like, oh, Russian can use, they don't have anything. And Russians used old school Soviet, like 50, 40, even 60-year-old Soviet technology in surplus in the first months and first years of the conflict. And I got a theory why Abrams just showing up, because Abrams probably would have had a difficult time navigating either in the winter or in the extra muddy conditions. I wouldn't know that, but it seems odd that they're showing up all at the same time with the long-range missiles, and the weather's getting better, and the counteroffensive that started. Ukraine has been talking about this for a while, and the whole world was expecting it. And apparently, it has started in some way, because they did some action there on the northeast of Artyomovsk, which is, I believe, is Bakhmut. Now, I'm not a war analyst. I don't really get into it. I know it's just to kill more Ukrainians and Russians. But, you know, Russians continue to deny the fact that it's not really that big counteroffensive that people expected or, you know, perceived to be. It's all just more fear-mongering, and maybe that's the reason why our UK is sending those long-range missiles, because conventional war cannot achieve anything in this case except kill more soldiers and kill more civilians on the ground if there's any still within the conflict range. But there is another war that's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and it's right here on the border. Glenn, well, actually Canadian-U.S. border as well, because a lot of South American refugees use Canada to travel into and then cross the border from the north. But southern border of U.S. is under attack. Glenn, did you see this video?
Yeah, it's the end of Title 42, and migrant detentions at U.S. border has hit an all-time high.
Yeah, and look, if you look at the video, brothers and sisters, there's like a National Guard preparing to, or they're already on the border trying to stop the extra flow, and we'll have some more videos to show you. But they're not really protecting the border with the guns. You don't see any guns on those soldiers. However, they are sending guns to Ukraine, like another batch of 1.2 billion military, package to help Ukrainians protect their borders. But they don't protect their own borders. By the way, Glenn, do you know what Trump said about the war conflict? How quickly he will finish that?
And I have faith in what he just said. This was on the CNN town hall meeting he just had the other night in New Hampshire. He says, when he is president, that war would stop within 24 hours. And I say that's even a long estimate. When he's there, that's it. That's all. Game over, everybody. Let's sit at the table, hammer this out.
But you see how CNN was trying to catch him, like, are you pro-Russian or are you pro-Ukraine? Who do you want to win? Let's just watch this really quick.
If I'm president, I will have that war settled in one day, 24 hours.
How would you settle that war in one day?
Because I'll meet with Putin, I'll meet with Zelensky. They both have weaknesses and they both have strengths. And within 24 hours, that war will be settled. It'll be over. It'll be absolutely over.
Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I don't think in terms of winning and losing. I think in terms of getting it settled so we stop killing all these people and breaking down this country.
He wants the people to win and the globalists to lose.
And that's the point. But, you know, we have been in this for over a year now. In this particular conflict, there's always conflicts throughout the world, right? We mentioned Ethiopia, Sudan, what's the other one? Yemen, Syria. There's always something going on in terms of some kind of bloody conflict where people are always losing. Who's winning, we know. It's the bankers, it's the military-industrial complexes and all that. But this war, in particular, is designed to destroy not only Ukraine and Russia, but I also believe it's a part of the greater reset. Because when they're going to build Ukraine, let's say if the globalists win the conflict or in that region, how do you think they will rebuild the Ukraine? They'll rebuild Ukraine with all those digital IDs, which, by the way, they were already implementing all those technologies before the conflict. Ukraine was one of the more progressive test grounds for the new technologies, like including 5G, by the way. Wherever you stand on that. And if and when it's time for Ukraine to be rebuilt, whoever's going to rebuild it is going to implement those technologies, I believe. That's my sense. But Glenn, let's watch this video on what's going on the actual southern border, because that's much closer to us than Ukraine is.
Border town mayors about how they're preparing, what they're seeing on the ground. Joining us tonight are Mayor Cleo McCaw of Sierra Vista, Arizona, Mayor Don McLaughlin of Uvalde, Texas, and Mayor Javier Villalobos of McAllen, Texas.
Nobody from California?
Mayors, thank you very much for the time. This is a busy time, and we appreciate you taking a moment. Let me start with you, Mayor McCaw. What are you seeing? What are you feeling? And are your people worried about what happens 12 a.m.?
Thank you, sir. First, I appreciate you letting us be on camera. And, sir, we are positioned about 20 miles north of the Naco land port of entry. And what we're seeing now is we have migrants that are at the border. They're about 100 per day, 100 in the morning, around 60 in the afternoon, and they are being transported to Tucson straight out of Naco. We, as a city of Sierra Vista, we don't have the resources or the infrastructure to support migrants being dropped here in Sierra Vista, and there are no migrants being dropped here in Sierra Vista in our town. But they're being transported up to Tucson, which is about 60 miles away, going to our northwest.
Mm-hmm. Now, mayors in Texas, Mayor Villalobos, what are you seeing in McAllen?
It's totally different. Of course, here we've been dealing with that situation for over a decade. And fortunately, a lot of the issues have been gone somewhere else, for example, Eagle Pass, El Paso. And of course, we don't wish that on anybody. But here we go again. Brownsville is pretty much, I'd say pretty much at capacity right now. When we know once 42 is lifted, we're going to get into issues again. We were expecting the possibility of a few thousand within a couple of days, and we've pretty much prepared for that. We have Catholic sherries that we know can handle about 1,500. We had set up for about 2,000, but even before the lifting, we're already looking or expecting to have by today.
Those numbers are great. I'm sure if we listen to the other mayor, this sounds like an invasion. And I'm not knocking on the people that desperately trying to escape their third world situation and their dictatorship, and they looking for the better life. And there is better life for them in places like U.S. and Canada, because when they come in, they get the social assist, they get a new cell phone, they get free medical, which local Americans don't get, for example, and then they get all other kinds of resources, of course, including possible jobs and everything else. And Glenn, is this are they diluting the population intentionally? They're bringing the quality of life for North Americans, specifically Americans and Canadians, down, just sort of this is by design, right?
I don't know if it's about bringing the quality of life down. It's bringing more and more people to keep the labor costs down. So the middle class comes down together more like just above poverty. Like the World Economic Forum, Mr. Klaus Schwab said, Agenda 2030, you will own nothing but be happy. So in other words, we're going to provide a standard of living for you that you're going to work for the elites, and you're just going to pay for your life on the planet through that work.
And you're going to be a digital slave. Speaking of Schwab, this is what he said. You guys speak French? We must accept transparency, and I'll even say total banking secrecy. Everything is going to be transparent, and you have to get used to it. You have to behave accordingly. It becomes, how should I put it, integrated in your personality. But if you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't be afraid. This is a question for a guest. Did it sound like China?
Come on, Ben, weigh in on this guy.
I would say yes.
Ben, I was curious, what do the people think about WEF and Carl Schwab in China?
Do they even know of him?
No.
Would you say not like the level that we know here in the West? Okay, because they don't have access to as much freedom of press as they do here. Still, believe it or not.
Yeah, exactly. So in China, you don't have access to Google, you don't have access to Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, any of these. So the only way to get information is from government-controlled apps. So they control what you see. So I don't think people are much aware of this.
Champ, what about those new cell phones that link directly up to a satellite, and you can get information all around the world. I guess maybe in China, if you get
Starlink.
Yeah, if you get caught with a cell phone like that, that must be you might be going away for a year somewhere.
Can you use VPN in China?
Yes, that's correct. But you can use VPN, but the government is actually tracking down which VPN you're using. So in my college, people used to have VPNs, and then after a couple of months, they actually disabled it because they found out that students are actually using it. So they have a pretty high control of it.
Cool. And I actually heard about that. The VPN is not something that completely fail safe, and that you can still be traced with the technology of today. Okay, another question.
Yeah, that's like the all-seeing eye, eh, big guy? And they relate that to the Freemasons. Do you know that they have Freemasonry in China also?
Freemasonry? I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, how would he know? The information is...
Well, maybe there's a Freemason underneath this cat mask. I don't know. How do I know?
Well, how is he here in the first place, right? How did they let you out of the country? That's a good question.
Poor Ben.
If they trace you so hard that you have to change your identity and change your voice, how are you able to get out of the country? Why would you let you out? Like, how come it's not North Korea? How come you're just not locked down in the country altogether?
Yeah, that was I came here before COVID. So at that time, there's a lot of people. So I'm just one of them.
What's your point of view on the West saying that COVID was started in China, Wuhan?
That's actually it makes sense. So there's scientific evidence that so the virus comes from bats, and if they did genomic analysis, so it's much closer to the bats population in China. So it's very likely that China started it.
Yeah, they said originally it went from bats to some type of dog, remember? And we called it a transgender dog because it seems to be switching over.
I don't know how much we can comment. We just got out of YouTube jail from this. I don't know if this is the forbidden zone we're entering. We will, brothers and sisters, we will release another version of this that will go more in detail on Rumble, but we'll stay away from discussing subjects like this, at least for now, until YouTube becomes freeform, like Twitter, for example.
It would be nice if Musk bought YouTube.
Then he would own everything, and then who knows, and then maybe he'll lock it down. Well, it's probably in his interest to own everything, put a microchip in everyone's brain and be God in some ways. Maybe that's his plan. It's like, I'm going to be appealing to everybody. Okay, another Chinese question. BRICS. What's up with BRICS in China? How do people feel about that? Ben.
Okay. Well, we do hear a lot of things about BRICS in China. So I think people are pretty happy about it.
You're also encouraged to save gold, right? In China, the people?
What do you mean gold?
Physical gold, bullion. Yeah. Yeah, and I just heard the other night that the CCP party, which controls the banks, right? It's like their chief regulator, has instructed the banks to open up a gold window where you can switch gold for yuan or renminbi, the people's money, and vice versa, at will. So it looks like they seem to be backing their fiat. Well, their fiat currency doesn't seem to be so fiat anymore. It seems to becoming a real money again.
Well, yeah. So definitely, that's in China's interest to have to use yuan as a more global currency, but I don't know how much it really takes. It's not really in my expertise, but yeah, that's an interesting point.
Here's an interesting point. So BRICS nation wants to debate on common currency. So it's the death of the greenback, and brothers and sisters, when we tell you to be prepared for this thing to come, and the bank runs already started in some of the Western countries, and this is the next step. If the dollar dies even more so than it's already dead. I mean, it's not dead yet, but it's definitely losing its value all over the world and its influence, isn't it, Glenn?
Big guy, it's losing its hegemony as the world reserve currency. It won't, the US dollar will not die. It's still going to be one of the biggies, if not still the biggest, but it won't be used as a medium of trade for the rest of the world anymore.
But if it's not then gold back and it's no longer the oil trading currency, why would people even use it?
That's an excellent question. The caveat is that potentially America still has the most amount of gold reserves that they would be able to back their currency. Potentially. That hasn't been verified and audited in Fort Knox since the 1950s.
The BRICS group of nations will debate the feasibility of introducing a common currency for global trade as an alternative to the US dollar at the bloc's next summit at Johannesburg, Bloomberg has reported, citing South Africa's Minister of International Relations and Corporations. It's a matter we must discuss and discuss properly, Naledi Pandor said in the interview in the Cape Town on Tuesday. So yeah, everything points out to that the BRICS was designed way in advance before any of those Ukrainian conflicts started as the counter. Like, you know, if you think the war only started a year ago or 8 years ago, not really. I think the world has been preparing for this. And by world, I mean powers to be, people that in the know, you know, industrial military complexes, the bankers, the people that do this sort of thing. Like when you think about what you're going to buy at the grocery store today, there's some blog, some person somewhere in the world thinks about, all right, so we're going to migrate 2 million people into this country. 10 years from now, we're going to devalue the dollar. 5 years from now, we're going to start war in Eastern Europe. 30 years from now, we're going to kill 1 billion people. You know, there's those kind of decisions made on a daily basis, and those people are evil if they are people altogether. So we just want to thank our guest today from mainland China. And thank you for coming to the studio today. And I hope your family will be safe because our show is so popular on YouTube. We get like billions of subscribers. We hope nobody recognizes your face in the cat mask and nobody recognizes your voice. Glenn, any last words to say?
No, this has been a good one. It's always intriguing and fantastic to have people with different cultural backgrounds, and you know. But the good thing is the realization that the people themselves, we don't want any division. We don't want conflict. The people don't want it. It's the governments that don't work for the people. They work for the elites. They cause the conflict in the world. Like you said, big guy, the timeline is always engineered for their benefit for two reasons. To make more wealth, more money, and the second one is to instill more control over the population to prevent a further uprising later down in history, in the future, sorry.
Ben, any recommendation to the Western society in regards to where not to go, where China is, for example?
Well, that's a very good question because I'm still figuring it out myself. You know, you guys all heard about the police station, well, in all over the places. So it's pretty sneaky. But I would say just be careful of what you said. There's some incidences happen like in a neighboring institution, like the head of a, you know, some people, it's a professor who's commented something on Twitter, and he was completely canceled. So just about one sentence. So I would just recommend everybody now, you know, now is a time, you know, of control. You really need to be careful of what you put onto like a public channel.
So you said that was a professor that got canceled? Wow. What a world. Even the woke are getting canceled.
And the point is, the reason why we're doing this show, we are not afraid as a matter of fact, this is the critical mass fear. More of us will speak out, more of us will take an action, and more people. You know, there's a lot more of us than of them. But I give this example all the time. When I first came to this country, I've assumed, based on what I see on TV, that population of United States and Canada is roughly 50-50 mix between African Americans and whites, blacks and whites, and maybe there's some Hispanics, etc. Or it was kind of equal distribution in some ways. And then I learned to find out it's nowhere near. And this was just propagated as an agenda to make you feel certain ways, to make you feel that fake in your perception that the critical mass of certain groups, and again, I'm not playing divide and conquer, black versus white, anything like this, but I'm saying this is how they use those tools. So you're like, oh, be afraid, don't say something. It's like in North Korea or China, for that matter, the government body is a lot smaller than population itself. And you saw a lot of those caricatures of sheep being herded by the shepherd. And if the sheep only knew that the critical mass, they can trample that shepherd at any point. But they don't, because they're afraid they're not going to get their food, for whatever reasons.
Yeah, champ, we say it, we repeat what we've heard, something else was said. How could so many people allow themselves to be controlled by so few? Okay? That's the people relinquishing their power, their independence, their freedoms to a few. And then the few use this power against the people. That's why so few people are allowed to control so many.
Regain your power, brothers and sisters. We'll see you on the next one.